Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind creation Miss Couture. In today's episode, we are trying a redemption at snow dyeing, and spoiler alert, this time I did not burn the yarn, so it's a win for myself. So if you don't remember, I will have a link in the description box below for the episode where I where I burned my pan and my yarn, and that was super fun. Not. So let's get into today's episode. So I already put the snow and the yarn into the pan because we already saw that in the first attempt. Just so you know, I've put even more snow this time and I haven't added my acid yet. So hopefully this will help a tiny bit because I don't want to repeat, you know, almost burning everything down. That would not be fun. Okay, so we're going to be adding our colors. I have two different pans because I just want to see how two different color would react together. So this is actually a fun exercise to see also how dyes react together, and I'm using my tiny measuring spoons. Maybe I should be adding more dye. I don't know. We shall see. So I'm using like similar colors, but they won't be reacting exactly the same. Some of them will be breaking and some of them won't be breaking. What do we mean when we say breaking? So when you're using pre-mixed dry powder for your acid dyes, usually there is different pigment into it. To create the color that you're going to be using. Sometimes those pigment has a tendency to separate, and when we say breaking, it means that it's when you see the different pigments. So for example, if you were to use a purple, and when you are dyeing your things, you don't see purple necessarily, but you see pink and blue. It's when you say that you have a breaking of the color, and it happens. You just need to make sure that you know which of your pigment has a tendency to do this, so you can try to avoid doing this. Sometimes you can avoid it by simply adding acid, or it's simply by not adding acid right away, because some of the pigment will strike faster to your yarn. So especially like in purple situation, I have some purples that the blue will absorb slightly faster than the pink, or vice versa. So you just need to learn those things, and that comes with experience and working with your dyes. So we're continuing to add our colors, and you can see that the pigment has started to spread a little bit on the snow, which is fantastic. That's what we want to see. And it's quite cold today, so I'm bundling up in all the sweaters I can. It's more than sweater weather now. And you can also see that some of those colors, so on the pan that is further from, that is more on top, like the pan on the top, the first pigment I added I believe is soft tan, and there's not a whole lot of spread compared to the other dyes that I've added on the snow, which is very fun and interesting to observe as well. If you ever want to see how much a color spread, one thing that you can do is take a paper towel, have it slightly wet, and then you can just like sprinkle a tiny amount of your dry powder onto the paper towel, and you will be able to see how your pigment will react with the wetness of the paper towel, and it's white, so you can have a good visual of that as well. If you want to have a better idea, you can also even add some acid to it just to see how it reacts with the acid. It will not be perfect, of course, because it's not your actual fiber that you want to dye, it's not your yarn that you want to dye, so you need to take that into consideration, but it will give you a kind of a good idea of how it will react in a low immersion situation, which is always a good thing to know. Now I'm going to be adding my acid onto the top, but I honestly, I feel like I should have waited a little bit before doing this. I think honestly, if am going to try again snow dyeing or ice dyeing, I'll just be adding the acid when everything has melted. I think that's what I'm going to do next time if I want to do this. Leave me a comment in the section below if you want to recreate this or try to do something different for next time. So I came back about 2 hours later, and you can see that we had some like a beautiful spreads, and the colors work really nicely together. But I'm not very happy with the state of the color penetration. And like I said, I believe it's because I've added the acid a little too soon. So I have absolutely zero heat on right now. It's just melting naturally. And here you can see that I've waited again. And now going to be adding the heat onto the pan. I've I cheated a little bit and I added a tiny bit of water at the bottom of the pan simply because I wanted to avoid another incident. Because I just don't. The smell was horrible, my friends. So you can see that I'm looking at the color penetration, which is very minimal. So I don't know if it's because I don't have enough liquid into the pan, and I don't know if it's because I don't have enough dye. So we're just going to be adding more water, I think, because I don't think there's enough liquid in here. And I really do not want to burn down anything. So we're adding a tiny, tiny bit. Because we want to avoid any incident. And of course I should have put, please wear gloves. Don't be like me and wear gloves. Like, I'm always purple everywhere I go. I don't mind purple, but I mean, I don't always want to look purple. Alright, so I'm just speeding up this because I'm just going to be adding more water because I get slightly paranoid now. Since we don't have a whole lot of color going on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be flipping the yarn, and I will be adding actual ice on top of the yarn, and we're going to be adding more dry powders onto the ice, and in an attempt to try to save the day because I'm not super happy with how it's going. So let's finish to speed this up, and I will be bringing the ice and we shall see how this is going to turn out. So you can see that the color penetration is like it's not exactly there, besides where we have like that clump of dry powder that was in the snow. There is some color penetration, but it's very minimal compared to other situations. So this is why I am just flipping everything, and like I don't know if I didn't have enough snow because I really did compact it a lot, but I feel like the fact that where I live we have a really dry winters compared to other places, so the snow is very, very fluffy. There's not a whole lot of wetness, I would say, into the snow, so I think it's creating a big difference. Where if you're going more on the east side where it's more damp weather they have, I think it would have created a very big difference because I would have been able to pack with more snow, I think. Because like I said, it was fully packed to the brim. So I don't know. I think it's probably one reason. And I'm adding more water because I'm paranoid, apparently. Yeah, I'm definitely paranoid, that's for sure. And we're going to be adding the same dyes that I did on the first side with the same pattern-ish, just to create this effect. And once all the dye is on top of the ice now, I'm turning on the heat. And since it's quite cold, instead of doing half an hour on the burner, I'll probably do closer to 45 minutes to maybe 50 minutes. Simply because it's so cold, because it's ice and snow. So obviously it's going to be quite cold. And we don't want to, and we need the heat for the color to fully strike onto the yarn and adhere and bind to the yarn. So, see you in 45 minutes. Okay, I lied again. I'm sorry. It's been more than 45 minutes. I've cooked it for at least an hour because the water was so cold. And then I let it cool down for 45 to an hour, so it's been longer. And I'm expecting some bleeding because, as you've seen into the pan, there was color left. I believe there was an ice cube with some clumps of dry powder that was left, and that was what it was. There's minimal bleeding, which is good. So it was probably just that one ice cube. There's still some color in the bath. Oh, there's more color than I was expecting. So we're just going to be speeding up the process of washing this batch. And yeah, there's I'm fairly certain it was a clump of dry powder. So I'm just going to be speeding up this process for your beautiful eyes because sometimes it takes time to make sure that we don't have bleeding, and minimal bleeding is normal. And sometimes the bleeding comes from the fact that your water is either more acidic or not as acidic as my own tap water. I always try to clean off the excess of dye until its run clears. Sometimes, like I said earlier, like in many videos, there is minimal bleeding that will happen simply because of the nature of the powder that is used or the pigment used. It's part of life, and use a color catcher if you're going to be doing color work. So there's that. So you can see there's a teeny hint of water, of pink into this water again. Since it's superwash yarn, I really don't mind moving it as much. If it was non-superwash, I would be much more careful, or if it was fiber, I would be more careful. And I always use unscented soap, so that way when you purchase yarn from me, if you have an allergic reaction, it's not due to scented. It might be because you're allergic to yarn itself. So I've put in the spin dryer the first batch of the snow dyeing yarns that we had, and I will be washing off the second half of the colors. And you may be asking why I show you when I wash my yarn and the bleeding and all of this. So it's simply because people need to have the confidence to do those things by themselves. And honestly, sometimes you just need to know that someone else has issue with certain pigments, certain colors, and it's not just a you thing. It's more for reassurance for all of us that some pigments are harder to work with. And it's also a reminder that sometimes there is things that you can do to avoid bleeding, and sometimes there's nothing you can do. In the snow dyeing experiment, sometimes it's because you will not have the heat necessary, or it's just there was not enough acid and things like that. But for snow dyeing, if you have issues with the color running down or like bleeding a lot, you can always steam block after the fact. What is steam blocking? You take a big pot of water that you will be boiling, so it creates a lot of steam. You will have a steamer basket. So for example, if you were going to blanch veggies into that, you would do the same thing. You would put your yarn in the steamer basket, put a cover on it, and have it steam for half an hour to 45 minutes. And this will help ensure that you have the heat necessary to bind the color to your yarn. So we're going to be finishing up to rinse off all the excess dye into this, and after that it's going to go into the spin dryer to help speed up the dry process, and we will see the result when it's completely dry. And here's our finished yarn. It's honestly, it turns out better than expected considering all the little hiccups we had through this video. We still have some nice color blending, and there's even some speckles. So the colors are very similar, and honestly I think the next time if I'm going to be doing two colors at once, I'm going to use colors that are drastically different. Because, yeah, there's not a whole lot of difference. So I feel like if I were to redo this experiment, like I said, I would use different colors, of course, but I would do things slightly different. I think that instead of using the snow I have in my backyard, which is very fluffy, very dry snow compared to other region in Canada, I think I would just go with actual ice cubes, simply because there will be more moisture, I think, in the ice cubes. I honestly, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not good at this snow dyeing thing. Who knows? You can leave a comment in the comment section below to let me know if you think I could do something different and improve a little bit. But other than that, that's all I have for you today. If you've liked the video, please consider liking it, sharing it, and if you want to follow along the journey, well, you're more than welcome to subscribe. We try to post at least twice a week and sometimes a little bit more often. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one very soon.